Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady, with my co-host JC. Hey JC, how you doing?
Oh, Ms. Wendy, it's a pleasure to be back here on our show. It's so good to see you, though. Hear your voice once again. How's everything going in your neck of the woods?
You know what? I'm looking forward to 2026, and we'll leave it at that.
Well, you know what? I can't lie. So am I, because now we've got brand new revenue streams and opportunities to book, let it be training, learning development type stuff. I don't know. It's a crossroad for a lot of friends of mine right now on what to do this next year with their funds. Some of them do have to wait till January for the full submissions to be approved. I don't know. Maybe we'll learn something about that today.
I think we will, because today we have Andrew Scivally, who has more than 20 years of experience in the learning technology space and spanning course design, development, and leading L&D teams at institutions like JP Morgan Chase, and Zions Bank. Hey, Andrew, thanks for coming today. Welcome to the show.
Hi, hello there. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Tell our listeners, about yourself and how the heck you got where you are right now.
Yeah, it was really back in the late 90s. I was all into multimedia and video production, and someone introduced me to a word called e-learning, which I had absolutely no idea what that was.
Isn't that funny? It seems like it was eons ago. It really wasn't.
So I'm like, what's that all about? And they're like, you can do all this really cool visual multimedia and all this stuff. You can do that to train people on a disc. And I was like, ooh. and then they're like, or you can do it on the internet. And I'm like, yeah, you'll never be able to stream stuff on the internet. Wendy, I was a complete visionary, right? I mean, yep. I saw it all coming.
You were like, no. And then here we are. Where are you calling in from?
Just south of Salt Lake City.
Okay. And I'm in Florida, and JC's in upstate New York. So, here we are. How many years later, like speaking across the universe, or at least across the country, about this topic. And go ahead, JC.
Yeah, Wendy, that might be the case, but I did leave my heart near that spiral jetty out in Utah. I can't lie. Literally, I mean, part of the car was left out there. So many deep ruts. It's a beautiful country out there, though. And it's probably nice to get away at the end of the day and have some beautiful scenery to look at, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a nice area.
Absolutely. Our theme today is about where should learning and development sit on the org chart. And so let's just kind of, dive in. It's a long running debate about where L&D teams belong. Some reports HR, others operations. Some cases, the real answer just might be it depends. And I believe you just explored this recently on LinkedIn, Andrew, which sparked hundreds of votes, showing just how divided the field is. So what were the most surprising or polarizing responses that you saw?
I think the most surprising was that people, when they think of operations or a line of business, they have a lot of different ideas what those could be. And so honestly, in my poll, I could have been a little bit more clear, maybe on differentiating between all of those. However, you touched on it right off the bat. I think at the end of the day, it really depends on what you're trying to do. And, we can get into that. I think certain types of learning and training belong in certain areas. And I think when they are in the wrong area, they're probably a little less effective than they could be.
JC actually has some statistics on that.
Only 22% of learning and development, known as L&D functions, report directly to the CEO or business unit leadership, with the vast majority, 70%, still reporting to HR, highlighting limited strategic influence despite increasing emphasis on upskilling. Back to you.
What are your thoughts on that, Andrew?
Yeah, I think too many L&D teams are aligned up to the HR division.
Yeah, I agree as the HR lady.
It should not be that high. I'm not surprised that it is.
Yeah.
But JC, maybe also on some of that data, there could be pockets of training inside these operations where they don't actually call it that. They might call them enablement teams or success teams or whatever it is. But that's still, the number's still too high though. HR has a place in a function in this world and in the company, but I don't think all learning belongs there.
I agree. And I don't, I'm not sure that all of the learning is actually aligned with, the company vision, mission, their business goals. And I think we have some information from Gallup that actually supports that as well. JC?
Just 40% of organizations say their L&D team is aligned with business goals, suggesting structural placement does often hinder strategic impact.
Yeah. Andrew, thoughts on that?
See, that's the problem right there. Look, when you're a training team or a learning team and you get tucked away at times in HR, you're arm's length, right? They don't know you. And so for me, I think a principle that you could follow is your learning team should be as close as possible to the actual workforce that you're trying to impact, right? So you're in a bank and you're trying to work with the tellers, then being under HR to me seems a bit misaligned. You should be in the line of business where retail banking happens, where there are leadership that actually think about tellers all day long. You should be as close as possible to them. And you're not going to get that tucked away in HR.
Yeah, I agree with that. We looked up another statistic. We like to validate our information. So it's not just, this is an idea that we thought of. And this is from Burson.com. Organizations that misplace learning and development, such as isolating it under HR, like you just said, are 58% less likely to have learning programs that actually, effectively support business outcomes. So that is, it's so valid. And folks, I'm the HR lady. No offense to HR. And trust me, most HR people in corporate America will say, take it. We have enough to do. We have enough drama and toxic issues to deal with and laws that keep changing and turnover. So from your vantage as, the CEO of a major immersive learning solutions firm serving 80% of the Fortune 100, what are the risks organizations face when learning and development is placed in the wrong silo, for example, solely under HR?
Yeah, let's talk about where we are in this world right now. AI, like it or not, is ravaging the L&D space. It is creating content. It will be displacing people. Things are happening there, right? Good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, it's happening. Also, in tandem with that, learning budgets are getting demolished and companies are not spending as much on learning because they're seeing it as a cost center and non-strategic because it's placed in the wrong area at times. So I think what we're dealing with is if you're in the L&D space, you better get as close as possible to the person you're trying to impact. And then you better get in with those leaders and show them how you can help them accomplish their goals. And if you're in that operational unit, it could be in the customer success, the sales world, the operations, production, whatever it is. If you're in that unit and you're in the mix with the boots on the ground, you will be able to show them how you can help them win. And then they're not going to call you a training group or anything like that. They're going to call you one of their business partners. And you become strategic and you help them win and they can't do without you. If you're tucked away in HR and they're like, oh yeah, we send people over to take training. I'm sorry, you are an expense and you might not be touching on exactly what they need. I hope you had really good connections with your business partners somehow to make sure that you're training the right things. But until you get at the table with the actual leaders who are driving revenue, it's tough. It's tough to prove your worth.
Yeah. And let's talk about that a little bit more because there's training on legal obligations, right? Like sexual harassment and things like that. But then there's training on upskilling. And so, there's a huge difference there, right?
Yep. And as part of the nuance here, right, is that we just say training, learning, whatever. And it's it has many, many different types of flavors and everything. look, if it's something that is truly global, it's compliance, regulatory types of things. Okay, you need it, because if it's not that it's driving revenue, it's keeping you from spending money on fines, right? Yeah. If you have to stay compliant, it's needed. Fine. But what they're probably going to do is say, what's the least amount we have to do to be compliant? They're never going to like grow and flourish that team unless they got their hands slapped. So True. We're talking about banks still. I'm assuming like Wells Fargo got their hands slapped. They probably upped the amount of compliance training and tracking and everything they're doing. That's fine. Okay, like leadership. A lot of people will say leadership's going to be under HR. I could see a world though, like why not? It depending on the size of your company, but the leadership feel inside certain lines of business, it may be different than what they're doing in a whole other, multi-billion dollar part of the business. So again, I would still get connected with the revenue in the company. Revenue is what makes companies work. If you can drive revenue, they keep you, they grow you, they spend more money on you. That's how capitalism works, right?
Right. So to me, that also means that we should be tracking if our revenue has increased or decreased, with all other things considered. Okay, we put in some learning and development and things have gotten better or things have not gotten better. That's kind of hard to look at though when you're a big company, because there's so many other things going on, like what's going on today in the world with immigration and everything else. I mean, how do you even start tracking the positive or unfortunately negative changes because of the training?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's an age-old discussion, right? I mean, back when I was doing my graduate work in instructional design and all that, it was the same thing. But here's the deal. Again, in hard times, you must figure out what is it that you're trying to solve. Mm-hmm. And again, that's why I think if you're closer to the people that you're trying to help, like the closer you get into that business unit, if you can, again, I can help them figure out how to do less errors, right? I can help them figure out how to go faster with something, do more with less, like sell more, whatever it is, renew more, get more customers. Like for example, if you're a product company, the more you train your customers on how to use your product, the more they're going to use it. Therefore, they will renew at higher rates. That's driving revenue through training. So I think what you need to do is you've got to get there and say, look, what is the problem we're trying to solve, right? Is it a training issue? Yes or no? If it ends up being that, great. How do we measure it if it's going to be successful? What does success look like? If you cannot figure that out, you're probably wasting your time building training for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I saw a statistic from Deloitte that said companies where learning and development is embedded strategically, often reporting to the CEO or other, high-level business leader, are 3.4 times more likely to have strong business and talent outcomes. Ooh, that's huge.
Yeah. Here's an interesting conundrum, though. If you put learning into the HR world, the HR world knows what you do. They understand all your vernacular. They understand learning. If you put learning into a business unit of some kind, they may not know you, right? You're like speaking weird things. So you need to spend some time helping them, educating them on what you do and how you can help. So we need to understand as learning practitioners, we got to speak business. Like we need to talk about the strategy of the company, how we are doing things in business speak and how we connect to the business metrics, not the gobbledygook learning stuff. They don't care. They just don't care.
Yeah.
If you get in there and you present yourself as the impact team or the workforce transformation team or the whatever team, the performance whatever team, like once you get in there like that and you look at problems, you're like, hey, Wendy, did you know that I've been looking at your goals for the year and you have 3 goals, and this goal right here, I've seen this, this, and this, and I can help you achieve that. And here's how we could do it. And we're going to measure it based on this. Like, why would they say no to that? Like,
yeah.
No. So
yeah. So what are the traits of high performing organizations in which the learning and development does drive real business impact, not just, oop, check mark, training has been done?
Yeah, I think the traits are the learning professionals in there need to think of themselves as business people. Don't get hung up in your academic things. Nobody cares, right? Like, we don't care about the integrity of the learning or anything. They don't. That's not what you're hired to do. You were hired to drive the business towards whatever success or whatever metrics they're trying to get to. That is why we all work at these companies. And so I think the characteristics of that business is that the learning professionals see themselves first as business people, and they better understand whatever group they're tucked into. They need to understand that business extremely well. If they don't, you've already lost. Like, you're done.
Right.
That's a characteristic. Know your stuff, act like a business person, and go figure out how to get results. Don't say, hey, just bring your stuff to us. Let me know when you need help. If you're an order taker, they're going to cut you. Like, they will. I mean, in hard times like this, they'll be done.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm so glad you brought that up as well, because it's, I mean, I do training for a living. You know, most of my revenue is from training, whether it's online, in person, on stage, whatever it is. And there are things that I have to turn down because I don't know that business. I'm like, how can I help you if I don't know your business? And so it's so important to do the work. And so if you are having a learning and development team that's part of the business, you're onboarding and you're training of those people to say, hey, this is what we do here. This is what we sell. This is what we build. And letting them know the terminology is super, super important. JC had a stat he wanted to share.
Organizations that closely align L&D with business units, they achieve 30% greater training efficiency, delivering more capability, building with fewer resources. Back to you.
Yeah, so true. I have another. You had something, Andrew?
Yeah, just quickly. So my brother used to work at Wendy's in their training division, right? He was downtown Columbus there, and was really in the first e-learning team they had back in 2004 or 5, something like that. They would make them all go into the store and work for like a month or two, flipping burgers, making fries, doing all that kind of stuff. When I was at JP Morgan, or even as like Zions Bank, let's talk about Zions Bank. I did not know beans about commercial lending. I didn't understand how it was priced. I didn't know that world. I would have to go in there and like learn about loan pricing, learn about what SBA is, like all these different things, and sit through those classes and start to like understand that. That way, when I showed up at a SME or an executive about loan pricing, and I start talking to them, they're like, Andrew's done his homework, right? You start earning that credibility. We have to do that. That's just get out there, do the role, be amongst the people. That's just, it's got to work.
I would even say, I mean, you heard me go, yeah, I love that. I love that they do that. And I would even say for our listeners that all managers, whether they're learning and development or not, but all managers should have to do that too. If you're new to a company or just new to a role, and you are now a manager of these people, in the Wendy's case, flipping burgers, you should be standing next to them for at least a little bit of time to say, oh, this is how it feels to sit here, not comfortable and probably hot and stressful. And that makes you go, okay, I know what it feels like to be in there. I would even say, at least once a year, managers as well as learning and development people should be sitting in that role at a minimum, if they're not trained to do the actual chef work or whatever it might be, being uncomfortable in that hot environment and with the customers that are coming at you that aren't always nice to you, right?
Well, you build some street cred, right?
Right. To say, okay, I was there for a day and I hated it.
That is why I don't want to work as
and so, but next time my employee comes to me crying about something and saying they need new skills, they need upskilling, I understand what they're actually talking about because I was there and I am there once once a year at a minimum. I have a little bit of a question about like most employees don't want to go to training, right? Or maybe they do because they're interested in upping their resume to get the heck out of the company or get up the org chart. But if most employees don't actually care about training itself, what does a high performing organization do structurally to make learning unavoidable? I mean, is it baked into accountability, and how?
I think that most people don't like to go to training because they don't think it's going to help them do anything, right?
Yeah.
They don't know the what's in it for me, the WIFM or whatever. So they look at that as, all you're doing is you're taking me away for X number of hours or days, and I got stuff piling up back at the business or in the office, and now I'm just behind. Now, sometimes they're like, hey, that's a nice little vacation. Like I get to go and see some of my friends and, we get free lunch. Well, here's the deal. If there's a way to either stop making them lose time, like actually do things in the flow of their work, right? We've been talking about that for years. Mm-hmm. In the moment they need it, in the flow of their work, help them accelerate what they need to get done. Because if I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to show me how to like get all this stuff done and save like an hour or two a day, or hit my metrics better, or to make less errors, or like to sell more. That sounds interesting, because it appeals to that selfish primal part of you, right? That's like, well, what this is going to do for me?
Right. What's in it for me, and why am I being forced to do this? And I would selfishly also say, please don't make your training boring.
Well, here's the deal. Like, look, I mean, what's boring for some of us might vary, but what makes it not boring isn't necessarily the delivery method or the type of learning content. And what it is it's when you realize that this could help me, and I'm like, I'm interested now. It could be me reading an article online or listening to this podcast. If someone listens to this and they're like, I don't even care about this stuff, then it was a waste of time. But if they're listening to it and in the moment they're like, I'm trying to figure out how to drive like success of our team, or try to figure out how to organize like our division, well, then suddenly it became like pertinent to what they're working on, right?
Right.
And so again, it goes back to that, what's in it for me? Why should I care? How's this going to help me?
Yeah, and connecting it to their job and everything else. And so many of our listeners are in the HR role or wearing the HR hat amongst many other hats. So if you were advising an HR or operations leader who is trying to get more influence for putting learning and development in their company, what structural or maybe governance changes would you recommend?
Yeah, so for all the HR listeners out there, I'm not trying to propose that we take all the learning out of your world, because there's, I think, some interesting space here in the HR world. There can be lots of best practices and technology and things like that are centralized there, where you can help enable those other teams, right? Be those like shared services that all the learning teams need. You can also look at the overall corporate strategy and how is that flowing down to the different lines of business, right? Because in bigger companies, like what's said at the top, as it flows into thousands of employees, could change drastically. So the corporate HR teams could be really good at saying, okay, here are best practices for creating learning in our organization. Here's the tools, the technology, the delivery mechanisms. Here's a team to support you in that. Here's also like the corporate strategies that are coming from the top. And let's talk to you about your divisional strategies that you're working on to make sure they align. And so when we're reporting back, and talking about the learning and all that, we want to be able to present a cohesive story.
Right.
And then anything culture related, right? Culture is great in an HR world, centralizing our beliefs, our values, all of this. And some companies have a corporate like leadership culture, and that's really good there. But I think you should still adopt it to the different divisional units. Yeah,
absolutely. I think JC has a stat that he wanted to share with us.
Organizations that align L&D with corporate strategy and centralized reporting are 63% more likely to show measurable learning impact that supports executive priorities.
Right. And then the executives are going to be the ones that say, yes, we will do that expense, and not just the expense of the course, but the time. Learning and development is time consuming. And it's about, as you've mentioned, connecting it all to like the mission, the vision, and even the KPIs and the SMART goals. It's super, super important. So many companies, especially small companies, they may not have KPIs, key performance indicators. That makes me cringe. So please, if you are listening and you do not have KPIs for each and every one of your employees, start doing that. In fact, I just did a training today. We're recording this at the end of November 2025. I just did a training today on this platform about how to use ChatGPT to help create SMART goals and KPIs. So you're not alone anymore. You can get some help there. So Andrew, my next question is, speaking of technology, given the pace of change with technology, with hybrid work, with the skills that are demanded now, how important is it for learning and development to evolve its scope and connection into broader business strategy?
Well, it's critical. Like if you don't do it, I think learning teams are done, because it used to be that learning teams were all about content creation, right? We spent way too much time looking at all the different tools and figuring out how to build cool stuff. But look, technology is going to be able to do that better and better and better in the future, either on its own or with less people doing that piece. So if you think you're going to be a learning developer your whole life, like building stuff, well, maybe, but you're probably going to do like 3 or 4x the amount of output that you're doing now, which means some other people weren't needed to do that.
Right.
Or you need to start looking at other ways and saying, okay, well, what's the piece that we're going to do here? It's going to be, how do we get more targeted with like the results we're trying to drive, and really going through that. I think a lot more is going to get pushed back to measurement and reporting, and then us actually really proving like how we're moving the needle now. Again, we've been talking about it for decades.
Right.
But once these tools start building a lot of our content for us, like we're going to be forced to focus on something else. And I think it's going to be pushed to that. Yeah.
There's a statistic that says only that 38% of HR leaders say they actually have the decision-making authority to drive enterprise learning strategy, compared to 61% of operations leaders. So I think this goes back to what we started of saying, like we kind of said, like, how does positioning HR in L&D, in this case, hinder it, right? 38% of HR leaders versus 61% of operations leaders that can say, yep, we're doing that, or no, we're not. Like, that's huge. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I'll just go back to kind of what we've touched on before. It's the operational groups, whether in, again, lines of business, the products getting produced, the services getting produced, whatever, the sales teams, that is what drives the business. Like it or not, HR does not drive the business and never will drive the business, because that's not why you're hiring HR. And so when you hire a COO or you hire a CRO to lead sales, they are the ones really driving the business forward, and you make or break it based on their organizations. And that means they're going to say, hey, this is what we need. This is what we need to get better at. This is what we need to, improve. And, we're going to focus on these things.
Right. So I think some advice to our folks that are wearing the HR hat and maybe feeling frustrated that they're not able to move learning and development along is like, don't just throw your hands up in the air and walk away, right? But maybe say, okay, I'm going to go sell this to somebody who does have the authority to make these decisions, but make sure you're connecting it to business outcomes, not just, oh, it'd be nice to have this because the employee wanted it, or it'd be nice to have this because of whatever reasons are. So I'm going to assume you agree with that, right?
No, not at all. Yeah. So look, if I were an HR leader, I would go get to know the heads of our different lines of business, the heads of the departments, Like I would go get to know them. I would learn their business really well. I would say, Wendy, what does success look for you like for you next year? What are your KPIs? What are you measured on, Wendy? And I would say, like, what's the biggest thing you're trying to tackle? What keeps you up at night?
Yeah.
Figure that out and then go help you fix it and say, okay, Wendy, give me a week or two. I'm going to come back with some ideas. You come back and figure out what you can do to help achieve those goals and say, I will be your best friend. Like you've got me. I'm going to help you succeed. To me, that's the role. If HR is going to play a role in training, you need to help those groups succeed because without them, the business doesn't exist.
It's so true. And again, I want to say, if you're not using KPIs or SMART goals already, then the conversation that Andrew just said, it's going to go right over their head because they're like, I don't know, I don't even have SMART goals, I don't have KPIs, I don't have any objectives except for come to work every day and try to leave at a decent time. So, Andrew Scivally, thank you so much for being here. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, I do a lot on LinkedIn, so that's really the best place to find me.
Excellent. We'll make sure that we have your LinkedIn information in the notes. Hey, everybody. I hope this podcast session has been helpful and beneficial to you. Take care, and thanks for joining us. Take care, Andrew.
See you all.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.